Welcome back, everyone, to the One Shining Podcast with your hosts, Matt Childress, Will Wigington. Follow us both on Twitter at @mchildress__ at Will Wigington on Twitter as well. The one podcast you get around the area that covers nothing but college basketball at this moment. And it's a very interesting and weird feeling waking up today and where you had basically 6 or 7 consecutive days of no college basketball, whereas previous of that you had 4 and 5 consecutive days of all that was on TV was college basketball. It seemed like there were 7 or 8 games all going on within the same nanosecond of your lifetime. You couldn't switch a channel without one game coming back from commercial or going to commercial. It's weird to go from that where just there's nothing more you can consume. You almost feel like you're over flooded with college basketball news and games to watch, to getting this extended break of I don't know what to do. I have to go back to normal everyday life of nitpicking. My girlfriend has me watching The Pit right now.
I'm watching Secret Lives of Mormon Wives with mine.
She loves that show.
Yeah.
I look, The Pit, great show. I'm a hypochondriac. I'm terrified of the doctor. I hate it. I almost passed out watching it last night. This dude got his scalp pulled behind over his head or whatever. I can't do that. I can't do that stuff. She loves it. She's in the medical field. She loves that stuff. It's so cool to her. I literally thought I was going to faint. I can't do it. But so we go from there to right when the show turns off. I'm thinking, I got to watch college basketball. This is on for the rest of the night. It was very confusing to think that the 2 games on the slate last night that I thought these are going to be bona fide dogfights. Like, these are the ones that I'm excited for the Thursday night slate. I could not be more wrong. I thought that Arkansas-Arizona was going to be a really good game. I thought Darius Acove was going to keep it going. And, Arkansas's offense was really going to propel them into a chance to win this game. And then you have Houston-Illinois going on at the same exact time that I felt, they ended up making it a little bit more respectable, but terrible second half performance from Houston. The other 2 games, Texas Purdue and Iowa Nebraska, that were on before those 2 matchups were, classic college basketball games where they're straight up rock fights. It's physical down in the paint. Purdue comes down to the absolute last shot, the last second. Was it a hook and hold? Maybe we can probably discuss that here on this show. I want to get your take because you mentioned it before we got on here. Our brackets, I feel like we've actually done fairly well going up until this round.
Before yesterday, I had a 95 bracket percentage. It's down to 50 now. So
yeah, we took a shot in the bracket column. My national champion is out, and therefore my other second Final Four team in Arkansas is also out. How did you feel about the slate last night? What were your big takeaways?
So, I agree with you. The first half was incredible. They were, just electric games. I thought the Iowa-Nebraska game, that was just more entertaining for me because it is such a big rivalry, or at least a regional rivalry. It's not a classic college basketball rivalry, but in the sense of college football, 100%. Nebraska fans, they absolutely showed out again. Just a great game. Iowa stuck in it. Ben McCollum made the adjustments necessary, and Bennett Sturts was just wheeling and dealing again last night. Alvaro Fulgaris, he's still dynamite. Now you have Tate Sage smacking threes left and right. It was just a great game. And it's not like Nebraska played that bad. They were controlling in the first half, but once Iowa brought it back to just 3 points at the halftime, you kind of had a feel like Iowa was going to end up just taking control at the end because Nebraska, they're just so reliant on their consistent shot making, and when it doesn't really fall with guys like Price Sanford or Jamarcus Lawrence, like they can kind of hit lulls. And they did hit a lull long enough for Iowa to really capitalize. It was a great game. Very surprised that Iowa was in the Elite Eight. I kind of hope they make the Final Four, honestly, but they do have a major challenge with Illinois. The Purdue-Texas game, I feel bad for Texas. Purdue was just grifting all night looking for foul calls. I felt like I was watching the fucking Thunder. It was infuriating. It felt like every time Trey Kaufman-Wren would go down the post, he would hook his arm around somebody's arm and flail and act like he's getting hooked and held and flopping around, acting like he got fouled as well. And the refs fell for it. And it wasn't just him, but that's kind of Purdue's MO as of late. Like, they don't have above the rim athleticism, so they kind of have to play a little dirty. That's kind of how it is in the Big Ten. And in recent basketball history, the Big Ten has not succeeded in the tournament because refs don't allow that. But that physicality has remained, so it gives them the advantage over a team like Texas, which may have a similar amount of depth, but at the front line, when you get a guy like Volkatitis in foul trouble, they don't really have somebody that can handle Trey Kaufman-Renn or Oscar Clough. So I don't think Purdue should have won that game, but obviously they did. Credit to them and Matt Painter for just incredible consistency outside of the most embarrassing loss in college basketball history. So we'll see how they do against Arizona. I don't think it's going to go well, though. And kind of moving into the second half of the slate, how we talked about, you have Houston as your national champion pick. I have them going to the championship and losing to Michigan, but I also did have Arkansas in the Final Four, as did you. And we both had them upsetting Arizona last night. But I think one thing that especially I failed to take into account was the advantage that Arizona would have with their big men. I thought Arkansas's pace would allow them to get the bigs for Arizona fatigued, would allow them to not have to play against a set defense as often and get quick buckets. I thought that getting switches by the big men like Krivas or Tobe Awaka on Darius Acuff would be barbecue chicken. And, I mean, Acuff had 28, but he was inefficient. And Arkansas scored 88 points, but they lost by 21. And that is the tail of the tail right there because they got absolutely body bagged in the paint. I think Arizona at halftime only had 4 3-point attempts. I mean, it was ridiculous. And
they only had 8 for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, it's just unreal how uber efficient they are and dominant in the paint they can be. So Arkansas, I mean, I the reason I picked them is for the reasons I mentioned, but I also thought guys like Malik Ewan and Trevin Brazile would be able to mitigate the deficit in the paint, but that was extremely wrong. And Arizona kind of just took it to them. They had no answer for their paint presence. I mean, they were scoring pretty well, but like I said, you got 88 points. That should be enough to beat most teams in this tournament. But they got blasted. So, yeah, Arizona Purdue is going to be a great game. And then the last one, Illinois versus Houston, was very surprising. I was really disappointed in Houston fans, to be honest. I mean, you have a game in your home city, and you had maybe 10,000 fans in the arena. And Illinois had, behind their bench, a completely full section. They sounded like the louder crowd for the majority of the game. That's not when they went on their 17-0 run. They were just present. And Houston was kind of, it just had an anxious air about them on the court and in the crowd. And they got handled. I should have listened to my own criticism of Houston, which I said when our bracket preview, that they really struggled with the best teams in college basketball this year. They routinely got handled by them, and that's not what Houston has been that often under Kelvin Sampson. But I thought their defensive intensity, their culture, having a guy like Kingston Flemings would be able to take them over the top in those matchups. But Illinois, they had too much size, too much shooting, too much talent, too many Europeans for Houston to really handle them. And now let's see if Iowa can do the same. I mean, obviously there's a big talent deficit, but anything can happen. If Iowa can beat Florida and they can come back against Nebraska, they can beat Illinois because Illinois is still, even with how much talent they are inconsistent. And they had a great night last night. They absolutely locked the shit out of Kingston Flemings in Houston. So first half of the slate, incredible. Second half, kind of sleepy. Hoping for some better games tonight.
The thing it is about the Arkansas-Arizona game and the Illinois-Houston game is they both had one common denominator, is that the team that was embarrassed in this game had by far more possessions and by far more shots. Arkansas had, what was it, 65 attempts compared to Arizona's 58 attempts. They had 7 more shots in this game. Houston had 64 attempts compared to Illinois' just 51. They had 13 more possessions than Illinois did in this game. And like you said, it comes down to the team's efficiency. Like, Arizona is just a lot more efficient team. You brought up that Arizona went 5 for 8 from 3 in this game. Arkansas went 5 for 23. Like, it was one where the Arkansas game for me comes down to it's fuel in the fire for the fact the thing that Louisville fans had talked about the whole time when playing against Coach Cal, or rooting against Coach Cal, is that Cal can't coach defense. He's never been able to. He's not been the greatest defensive coach. He's a guy who heavily relies on gaining that star power in the transfer portal in the recruiting class that my guys on the floor are going to be better than yours. If it gets messy, they're going to step to the plate. Your guys are going to falter. And these are the games when you're playing against the best talent and the most balance in college basketball across the country. That usually fails. That usually does not come to fruition. Some guys are going to have off nights. Like you said, Darius Akos still gets 28 points, but a very inefficient 28 points. This was one where I felt Trayvon Brazile was going to continue his hot streak of, holding down the paint for Arkansas, punching a little bit above his weight. And I thought they were at least going to be able to mitigate, not completely derail, but at least neutralize Arizona's advantage in the paint. And my God, where was I wrong? I mean, it wasn't even the only thing that was close in this was the rebound battle. It was 30-28. I don't even know if you should be getting that many rebounds in a game. Like, I don't even know if that number should be getting that high. There was just an egregious amount of possession in this game. There was little to no defense played on, honestly, either side. This was a rough game for Arizona defensively as well. But you catch Arkansas on an off night, you play one of your most efficient games. They had over 100 points at 5 minutes left in this game. Like, it was...
Yeah, I mean, there were 8 to go, and I was like, because the game was getting very, it was getting a little aggressive by the players, and I was like, I feel like Arizona's just going to keep the pace and run it up on them. And 109, I mean...
109 with only 8 3-pointers taken is
unbelievable.
Incredible. With 64% field goal percentage from the field in general is absolutely ridiculous. But going back to the Houston-Illinois game, this was one where, I mean, for me, Houston just did not play Houston basketball in this basketball. Like, it was one of those where I'm not even a fan, but I'm getting frustrated watching. Like, forget what my bracket is. Forget if you have any money on it. As a perfectionist and a college basketball person, I'm getting frustrated watching this basketball team. It's the same thing when you watch Louisville this season. It's like, okay, they won this game, but the way it looked when you won this game was just not what you want to see. They only shot 2 free throws in this whole game. Like, this Houston team, especially with Kingston Flemings, is known for getting the free throw line, being physical in the paint, not being the largest team in the country, obviously, but showing their physicality down low and the fact that they're at least going to you're at least going to have to slow them down in the paint and force them to shoot. Illinois did a great job of doing that. They forced them to 32 3-pointers. They only made 9. Like I said, you compare 64 shots to 51 shots. That's one where even on an off-shooting night, you have such an advantage in the amount of possessions you're playing. You're either playing extremely well on the defensive end, forcing a lot of turnovers. They forced 9, so not an incredible amount. Or you're playing at way too high of a pace, and you're getting too many shots up, and you're not capable of getting back in defense in time. Like, and that's a lot of what this game was. Is, like I said, Houston just did not play their brand of basketball, and that has seemed to be an issue for Kelvin Sampson for most of the season and the losses they've had. Where I'm watching it, I'm thinking, I don't know if this is Houston that I'm watching. Like, I don't know what basketball this team this is. They have the talent good enough to at least make it competitive. But Kelvin Sampson seems to have this issue of just losing his identity in games and not being able to find it. And I think that a lot of that comes down to what happened last night. But like you said, Texas-Purdue, great game for the most of it. I figured Texas would cover. I figured Purdue would win. Should it have counted? I want your opinion right now. Should it have counted?
So I understand why people say, like, oh, Dalen Swain needs to hit the weight room. He got body bagged. Like, quit crying about it. But that is what Purdue's gotten away with for years now. I would say since Zach Edey was there. I mean, how many fucking times did he just maul somebody in the paint and would never get called for a foul? I mean, I feel like refs did everything in their power to keep Zach Edey in games. And obviously that worked to their benefit. That was probably last night the worst example of Purdue foul baiting that I've seen this season. I've watched several of their games. I watched them get ass blasted multiple times at home by Iowa State,
Matt Painter basketball.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like I said earlier, Purdue doesn't have the elite level athleticism or the high level talent that other teams in the tournament do have now. And even though Texas was an 11 seed, they had several guys that are at least NBA level talents that could compete with them athletically and skill wise. That's why it was a close game. But I mean, Trey Kaufman-Ridd did have his arm hooked around Dalen Swain, did come from behind and shove him out of the way, which I don't consider that an over-the-back foul because he didn't, like, jump over top of him to get the rebound, but he did completely discard him before tipping it in. So that's a loose ball foul in my mind. But I'm not surprised they didn't call it. Like, if they didn't call any of the other stuff, or actually gifted Purdue calls that they shouldn't have had, there's no way in hell they're going to call that in that situation. So, yeah, it is what it is, but it should have been a foul, I would say.
The surprising thing for me is, like, you made a good point that, you know, if they're not calling it earlier in the game, they're definitely not going to call it in the final possession when they know it's going to get hyper aggressive. The last thing you want is the game to end because the whistle is blown.
Yeah.
Like, and then somebody gets a free throw and ends the game. Like, you want to see the drama, you want to see the excitement, but I feel like this could be just my personal opinion that the officiating in a lot of these games has been, bear with me now, consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
Where usually when you get to the NCAA tournament, when we were growing up, it was, we're in the NCAA tournament now, it's
Recorded
going to
podcast.
get physical, the whistle's going to be kept in their pocket a lot, you're going to have to fight, you're going to have to play, and that's what we grew up watching, right? But as college basketball has evolved, you've seen that they've really toned up the whistle in terms of they want to play clean basketball. They want these teams, you know, they're going to call almost everything. They're going to like this and that. There is no more going down, you know, old school Patrick Ewing Georgetown basketball where they're just going to bruise you. That doesn't exist anymore. They're blowing the whistle at a very high rate in the way college basketball in the modern era, but they're doing it basically in almost every game. Half-to-half ratios. Like in the first half, it'll either be completely non-existent. I'm like, okay, they're letting guys play. This is fun to watch. And in the second half, it's just like every 35 seconds, we're getting a stoppage of play, we're getting a free throw, we're getting this. And it doesn't carry weight into the other matchups. It's constantly this, okay, well, this game, there's a lot of calls. This game, there's not. And it's become one of those where, like I said, when we were growing up, we'd watch the NCAA tournament, you almost knew what your team was getting into and you could mentally prepare for it. Now, I'm not understanding what we should be ready for. Should we be playing more physical because it is the tournament, or should we be playing for the whistle like do guys like Purdue and Matt Painter do? It's very confusing, which I think that's just basketball in general. The NBA has a big issue with that as well. I feel like that's just kind of where we're going. It's what happens when you put so many different officiating crews from different conferences together. It just kind of mucks it up.
Well, I mean, a perfect example of what you're saying is that the Iowa-Nebraska game, which started 20 minutes after Purdue-Texas, finished first. Before. It was over 20 minutes after that it tipped off. And it still finished with, you know, a minute and a half, 2 minutes left to go in the Texas-Purdue game. That just kind of goes to show, obviously, a game-to-game inconsistency, but there were an egregious amount of second-half fouls called in that Texas-Purdue game, and it really it's unfair to the players and the coaches in my mind. It's like, set the expectation. I'm fine if you want to call it a loose whistle or a tight whistle, but maintain that mindset throughout the entirety of the game. Don't switch it up every 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. There's only really one point I want to make on the Iowa-Nebraska game. One, like you said, great, you know, regional rivalry setting. First off, on Twitter, it was getting very volatile.
It was like
racial issues, religious issues.
It was heavy stuff. Yeah.
I don't remember who, you know, caught the ceremonial fair catch at the start of this basketball game to, you know, depict who was going to get the ball first, but I was surprised to see Iowa and Nebraska fans come and we figured Nebraska fans were going to show out because of the situation, and Iowa, you know, obviously big Cinderella run for them tonight. But my gosh, these people must have been just itching for any success if possible, just to jump at the seams. I thought the USF Louisville stuff was going to make like the most national news across the tournament in terms of, you know, shit talking. This did it. I don't even.
It was times 3 what we had at minimum.
The one thing I want to point out from this game, what do you make of not getting 5 men on the floor in one of the possibly the biggest possession in the entire game?
He pulled a Mark Stoops. I don't know if you get the reference, but when Mark Stoops, I think he twice actually had 10 guys on the field against Florida.
Yes.
In football, and they scored both times. Because he did it the last
possession of the game.
Yeah, and they scored both times. That's kind of what it reminded me of, but even worse because it's harder to pick out when you're one guy short in football, but when you have 2 in basketball, I mean, it's like, it reminded me of that Colin Sexton Alabama game back in like 2019. Do you remember that when he had to finish? Alabama had to finish a game with only, I think it was 3 on 5 or 4 on 5.
Yes, I do remember that.
Only one possession, but still, it's. I don't know how you have a misstep like that. And I know Fred Hoiberg was asked in the post-game press conference about it, but like, I don't even know, like, I don't think there's any possible scenario where you can make an excuse of that in that situation.
No, there's not. Like you said, in football, you're dealing with 11 different guys, and there's like strategic, like implications of okay, we're going to sub now to slow down the possession.
Right.
This and that. We're going to try and we're going to get a free play out of this. The offense is going to sub, so they can't. All this stuff, right? And you literally have coaches on the sideline whose job it is to make sure that stuff is right.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 5 people on your team in the basketball court. Like,
Yeah.
if my eyes could point out on a football field, be like, that looks like too many guys or too few guys. I can't imagine being a Nebraska fan at that game with 1 minute left. What were they down? I think they were down 2 or they were down 1 or maybe either way. It was I think it was a 1 possession game. I'm running on the court. I'm tackling a player to stop the game. Like
Yeah.
and you see that he has a guy coming off the bench like to run in. So like it gives me the inkling that like there was a miscommunication between the players subbing in and out or something. So it wasn't like a coaching thing, and that's probably why he didn't have a lot to say about it. But at the same time, I mean,
It's like, how do you not take a second and just be like, whoa, something's really messed up right here. We got to fix it.
especially in this situation where you're down,
Yeah.
you don't have the ball. You probably just took this time out to set up a press break, set up a press. The first thing you should do is as soon as you come out to look and make sure your guys are in the right place. And
Yeah.
then, or be like, hey, Jim, go over there. You're supposed to be on the left side. He just like turns around and walks his appy ass back to the bench. And then you see as they inbound it, dude, I couldn't tell who it was. Dude from Nebraska runs off the bench trying to get to the table. Dude, I don't know what you're doing. The play's over.
Yeah,
It's done.
they're
They
letting
just
go
throw
at that point.
They just throw 4 verts down the court where nobody's standing there, and he gets a free dunk.
Well, isn't it a rule, too, if a ref notices there's not 5 guys on the court, it's an automatic technical? Like, is that not a thing in basketball anymore? Because I could have sworn.
I thought maybe.
If you have able-bodied players, like the reason Alabama could finish the game is because so many guys got ejected that they literally had nobody on the bench to bring them in, and then players fouled out. But in this case, you had a full bench. Like, that should be a technical. I'm pretty sure that's a delay of game, like a procedural technical foul.
Especially because they're also supposed to go to the coach and say, hey,
yeah, you
only got 4 guys out there.
Right.
So I'm guessing maybe, and like I have the video pulled up right now as I was mentioning it, and the ref is standing right in front of Nebraska's bench watching this. But at the same time, I also can't feel bad for them in that situation because this is off of a timeout inbounds. Like,
it's unreal.
There is about 20 seconds of footage of them just standing there waiting for the ball to be inbounds, and nobody is paying attention to notices. This is, let's put this in our situation with what you saw this year and the frustration you saw with the coaching staff. Imagine we made the Sweet 16, and this is basically ended the game right here. So this is how you lose. Imagine Pat Kelsey loses to Iowa because you had 4 guys if you had 4 guys on the court. What is your reaction?
Put him in a cannon and send him to China. That is my reaction. So, yeah, that's a fireable offense. But, like, also, Fred Hoiberg's not going to get fired because they went to their first ever Sweet 16. But that is beyond the pale bad.
No, yeah, like if that happens at a Duke, a UNC, a Louisville, a Kentucky, whatever you want to say, I think if TJ Otzelberger did that, they're like, dude, we got to have a serious conversation because one, yeah, you're doing great here, but you're just not paying attention in the heat of the moment. Like you got to have some kind of there's no excuses here. This is one of those like dumb boneheaded mistakes. You're like you make once, you never make again, but you can't even make it once. You're not allowed. You just ended your team's historical season because you didn't get 5 guys. I don't know. I'm kind of ranting about this, but
it is worthy of that, I would say.
I was aghast last night watching because I remember watching it, and obviously, like when you're looking at the camera angle, you can only see half the court. So you only see 3 of the players, and you're sitting here thinking, oh, the other 2 are about at the back of the other end of the court, ready for a press break or something like that. And they just heave the ball down the court, and I'm like, wait, there's one few guy over there.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. But we can go ahead and move on from that. That was just that was the one thing I was most excited about talking about on the show. I'll be honest. Tonight we have, this is what I think is the Big Daddy slate for the Sweet 16. You have 7:10 p.m. tip-off on CBS, St. John's versus Duke. 7:35 p.m. tip-off on TBS True TV of Alabama versus Michigan. 9:45 on CBS. After the St. John's Duke finishes, you have Michigan State versus UConn. And then after that, you have at 10:10 p.m. on TBS True TV, after the conclusion of Alabama, Michigan, you have Tennessee, Iowa State. These are all four games that, I think that everybody's going to be locked in watching. Is there one of these that stands out to you besides the others that, this is the one you're most excited for?
I'm very curious because I was going to actually just look. I haven't heard anything about Joshua Jefferson. I don't think he's going to play tonight.
I saw yesterday that he was listed as a game time decision. Jeez. I imagine that's not going to change. I imagine, at least in my opinion, you're in the Sweet 16. You are favored in this game. I think they can win without him. But if you're a game time decision, if I'm Joshua Jefferson, I'm playing.
Yeah, it says he's still a game time decision. Like he himself is going to decide. But he's got a noticeable limp and shoot around. So we'll see. I mean,
if Caleb Foster's playing, Joshua Jefferson got to get out there.
I was going to say, it's pretty crazy that Caleb Foster is already back. I mean, even if he's only like 65% and he's going to play, I would agree. I think Joshua Jefferson is a guy that has been around at Iowa State long enough to know their shortcomings in the tournament and how much of an opportunity that they have right here. But also, he might be a detriment to an extent if he comes in and he really just can't give you enough on offense or defense. Like, I don't know. Tennessee has the bodies to kind of snuff out what he wants to do in the paint. So maybe he's going to have like a Jordan Pope role where he's going to be more of a spot-up shooter and a decoy, even though Jordan Pope did have a good first half for Texas last night. But I agree. I think he does play. But it's a major storyline to keep an eye on because when you have a guy out there like that, it just gives more space to Milan Momcilovic to shoot threes and for Tamin Lipsey to wheel and deal. So we'll see. I'm very intrigued with that game because Tennessee does have the ability to guard Iowa State pretty well, but at the same time, I don't think their offense is anywhere near good enough to beat them. So,
no, I think Iowa State. I think the one telling game they've played this season is the Kentucky game and how well that they can efficiently speed up teams that want to play slower.
Right.
And I know that Tennessee isn't like the slowest pace team we've ever seen. They play at like a pretty average pace. Like they get out in transition when they need to. They have the length and athleticism to up the pace when they need to. But Iowa State can kind of is like a double-edged sword. They can play fast if you want to. They can also play efficiently in the half court. But they're just smothering defense behind TJ Otzelberger that really just sets them aside from anybody else in this tournament at this moment. And Tennessee, I just don't believe that in this team under Rick Barnes. I think Rick Barnes is a great coach. I think that eventually he will inevitably make a Final Four and possibly go to a national championship game. I don't think this roster is it. I think that Iowa State is going to be too heavy on defense. They're going to force too many turnovers, and it's just going to kind of be even if it's not with Joshua Jefferson out there. I think this team playing twice without him has shown that they, besides the first half against Kentucky, they can get the job done without him. But I do think he plays.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I mean, all three of the other games I'm intrigued by. I do think that Alabama, Michigan is a pretty solid mismatch, to be honest. Mainly because teams that have beaten up on Alabama this year are teams with a lot of size. You can think about Florida. Even when Alabama had Charles Bediako, they just got body bagged. And it's not like Michigan has, four bigs to the level of Florida, but they do have arguably the best center in college basketball this year in Adai Mara. They have Morez Johnson. They have Yaxel Lindeborg. Like, they have the size to really take care of Alabama and be aggressive on the perimeter defensively. So Alabama can hang in tonight, and if they hit a lot of threes, they might have a chance at winning this game. But I don't think Aiden Holloway is going to play, even if he's present at the arena. So I guess we'll have to monitor that. But if he does play, I would give Alabama like a 25 to 30% chance to win this game. If not, it goes down to like 15. I just think that the variance of Alabama is going to lose to a consistent team like Michigan. So I think the Iowa State Tennessee game and the Michigan Alabama games are easily the weakest two games of the night. But I could be wrong, obviously.
I think so as well. I mean, you're right there on with ESPN. ESPN gives Alabama a 27.4%
Oh, really?
chance to win this game. Yeah, you're right there. The spread is Michigan is -9.5. They have the over under at 172 in this game, which I think is
Really?
quite a few points for. Which I understand. Michigan's is decent on offense, and Alabama, they're holding on to what you said. They're going to try their best to make as many 3-pointers in this game as possible and try and keep the pace up in this basketball game. I think it's going to come down to the fact of, can LeBaron Philon step up to the plate and kind of wow us in the tournament? Can he have his tournament moment as one of the better backcourt players in the country? I just don't really see it happening against this Michigan team. I do give Alabama the backcourt advantage over Elliot Kudo. I just don't love his play. I think that he's kind of their weakest link, in my opinion. I think that they're good enough that he can play an average night and they still win pretty handedly, but they're going to need to slow down guys like Yaxel. They're going to have to, I don't even know what I'm saying here. Like, Alabama has a really, really tough road ahead trying to play against this Michigan team. They're just with all the size and athleticism they have. And Alabama, I know Nate Oates' his plan is to play with a fast pace, get out, shoot threes in transition, and just try and make it rain on you as much as you could. They make 19 in the game, their last game they just played. That's just not going to happen again. They'll still shoot at a high volume. I think they'll shoot at a decent efficiency, but you're going to ask for a miracle shooting night to kind of slow, at least I think, put this Michigan team on their heels. I just don't see it happening. But I do agree with you that the only one that I really want to see tonight is this St. John's Duke game. That's the one that I'm really paying attention to. I think that what Rick Pitino's 18-1 in his career in Sweet 16 games.
Do you know what the only one is?
What is the other one?
The only loss? You don't
no,
remember,
I don't know.
You don't
Not off the
remember?
top of my head. Is it hold on. Oh, is it Kentucky?
2014 UK.
Yes, I was at that game. That was terrible.
You were at that game?
I was at that.
I'm not gonna lie. I cried after we lost. I was in piss.
Because that was in Indianapolis, I think.
It was at Lucas Oil. And
yes,
we started
so
up 18-5 in that.
It was my brother, me, my dad, and his best friend, and so we all bought we bought 2 tickets. They bought 2 tickets. We had ones up in the way upper section. They had lower ones, but we were only God, that was 14.
There's not a bad seat in Lucas Oil though, to be honest. So
there's not, especially the way they set it up for basketball. It's only half, But they gave us the lower ones.
Oh wow!
And they went and sat up there, which was really cool. So we had to watch that game in the 100 section, which that's the only NCAA tournament I've ever gotten to watch from that low before, which is really cool. Unfortunately, I had to watch Aaron Harrison make a horrible shot against us.
I've always, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've always wondered about this because I've never talked to anybody that went to the game. And if you remember, how was the crowd? What was the percentage? Was it really a true 50-50? Because it sounded.
Oh, it was. I want to compare. So I didn't go to 2012 Final Four. My dad did, and he said that was really cool. That 2014 game against Kentucky, as much as I hated that we lost, it was such a good game overall to watch on TV. It cemented in my mind, even though I was a freshman in high school or an eighth. I was either eighth grade.
I was in 7th grade that year. I graduated. I'm 25 right now, so I don't know.
Okay, so I was so you were a 7th grader, so I was a freshman. I was a freshman in high school then. It cemented in my mind that Louisville and Kentucky is the peak of college basketball.
Yeah.
The fact that these two fan bases conjoined together, and now it's not a long drive. It's only an hour and a half, 2-hour drive to Lucas Oil, but it really, even on TV, you saw it was split right down the middle. They put Louisville fans on this side, Kentucky fans on that side.
Yeah.
It was loud every two. I was sitting next to people cussing me out. I was 12. It's one of those where I look back, even in a loss, I pray to God not only Louisville but Kentucky gets back there at some point. The state itself needs college basketball to get to that point again, where it's that hostile and it's that volatile. It was a truly surreal experience to go watch that game live. It just, lose off of basically a game winner that you were up the entirety of the game, which a Kentucky team that went on to wow a lot of people. But, you should have cut them down early. But, I was at that game. It was not a great memory. But, I forgot. That's the only one he ever lost. That's a bad omen. But
yeah. Did you pick St. John's in this game in our bracket preview?
Let me pull that up because
Okay.
I don't remember if I did or not. Because I don't have either of them in the Final Four, so I know they both
Yeah,
lose at some point.
UConn, right?
Yes, I have UConn. So let me pull that up really quick, and I'll tell you. I think I have Duke winning it. If I were to guess, let me double check. Oh, it's taking forever to load up. I have Duke winning this game.
Okay.
And then losing to UConn.
Gotcha. All right, well, give me your analysis, your prediction real quick. What do you think is going to happen?
So I think it's looking like Caleb Foster is at least going to try to play, which I think that he is going to benefit Duke a lot in this matchup. ESPN only gives St. John's a 23.3% chance to win this game, which I think is absolutely outrageous.
Wow.
It's a 6.5 point spread for Duke.
Okay.
Which this game is played in Washington, D.C., so I guess you kind of get an advantage there if you're, Duke. It's a little bit closer, I guess. Not.
Yeah, but
regionally a little, not anything crazy, but I guess
they definitely have the advantage, though, I would say.
But it's one where we saw that with Patrick Ngungba coming back last game that he really elevated this team a little bit, at least giving them a little bit some more sides in the paint and something more reliable down there than it's just Cam Boozer doing almost all the work. They were able to share the wealth a little bit. If Caleb Foster can come back and play genuine minutes and look like he's at least 75%, he can still share the ball. He can knock down a few shots. He's obviously not going to be able to take guys off the dribble probably like he was, a couple weeks back. If he's able to at least play efficiently, I think Duke will still win this game because I think that their team is just overall a lot better offensively. I think that they're better defensively. I think that Duke is just a better team overall. But St. John's under Rick Pitino is playing their best basketball of the entirety of the season right now, in my opinion. I think that they are grueling aggressively. I think that this team is playing with a type of fierce that you only get out of coaches like Rick Pitino. And it's one where if Duke has struggled this season against teams that can play hyper aggressive, and Cam Boozer is a guy who struggles with guys playing too physical with him and playing with size. When you can push him off the block that he loves to sit on, he doesn't play his best basketball. And it's one where it makes me feel like I want to take St. John's in this game. And I actually, even though I picked Duke in my bracket, I'm going to take St. John's. Because I feel like this Duke team is a little bit battered right now. I feel like they're not living up to the expectations we want them to because of injuries. And I think that those lingering injuries from the players returning and Caleb Foster and Patrick Ngungba are going to cost them a little bit more. And I think the idea that, you're playing against Rick Pitino in March. The only one that's going to cut down Rick Pitino in March is Coach Cal, unfortunately, from last season. And like you said, in 2014, the Sweet 16. I think John Shire's close. I don't think he's there yet, and I think the injuries are going to weigh a little too much. I think that St. John's wins this game.
It's going to be a great game. I really hope that it's going to be a great game at least. So one thing with St. John's early in the year that I was just was in disbelief about was how just out of sorts they were. Because this might be, honestly, and I'm not even trying to hyperbolize, this might be the most talented roster Rick Pitino's ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, you have guys like Zuby Ejiofor, Dylan Mitchell, who was incredible at Texas. Even a guy like Isaiah Sellers doesn't play that much, was arguably Stanford's best player last year, at least his second best player behind Reynaud. Then you have guys like Ian Jackson. You have a guy who came up from the trenches, Dylan Darling, who has really stepped up to be just a game manager, but a great one and hit a game winner just last week.
Rick Pitino talks about that man like it's actually his own son.
Yeah, you can tell that he loves that kid. But Joe Sansanin, it's just Bryce Hopkins. It's an absolutely loaded roster with guys that do two things really well. They're physical as shit, and they play their asses off. Now, St. John's might not have incredible shooting, but neither does Duke. So, outside of Isaiah Evans, they don't really have any snipers. And one thing that Rick Pitino always did so well at his time at Louisville, and just really in his career, but I'm just speaking from a U of L fan's perspective, taking away what a team does best. He's going to make you beat his team a different way than you're expected to normally. So a guy like Isaiah Evans, I don't expect him to have a good game tonight because I'm expecting. You think Cam Boozer is number one in the scouting report? It's probably going to be Isaiah Evans right up there with him because I'll bet money that they play Ejiofor on Boozer straight up. Like there will be no doubles. It's going to be one-on-one defense the entire night, and it's like you just make him work his ass off for every bucket possible. And we'll have other guys come in at different times to give you a breather, like Dylan Mitchell, who doesn't have the weight and strength, but has the size and lankiness to make Boozer uncomfortable. And we're going to hound the perimeter and make guys like Isaiah Evans and Cam Boozer turn the ball over. You know, Caleb Foster, you want to play with a broken foot? Fine, we're going to press the fuck out of you and make you run on it all night and wear you out. St. John's, that's why I did pick them to win this game, is because I don't think that Duke, their play style, pertains to a team that typically beats St. John's this season. So I think Rick Pitino's a better coach than John Shire. Rick Pitino's arguably the greatest coach in college basketball history. I definitely think he is, at least in this era, right up there with Coach K. But I think St. John's has the roster makeup to beat Duke. Now, does that mean they're 100% going to? No. Like, Duke could win this game without a doubt. But gun to my head, I'm taking St. John's.
Within this matchup, I just went and double-checked across the other matches we have tonight, the other 3 games. This is the only one where both teams, their leader in points, assists, and rebounds are all one player.
Damn.
For St. John's, it's Ejiofor. For Duke, it's Boozer. You already predicted they're going to basically be playing one-on-one basketball out there. There's no double team. Which one shuts down the other one?
I would say Ejiofor, because if you look at, say you just go back in Duke's season, whenever they play teams that have a lot of size, they tend to bother Cam Boozer. You think of teams like North Carolina that beat them in the first game when they did have Caleb Wilson, Texas Tech with JT Toppin, teams that Duke did beat but barely, like Michigan State on the road, Florida, they barely beat Arkansas on a neutral. All of those teams, while maybe they didn't make Cam Boozer have horrible games, they kept him in check enough to give themselves a chance in the game. But Duke's others played well enough to win. The thing is, I don't think Duke's others are playing well enough to win right now. I mean, they kind of got gifted that game against TCU, but in the Siena game,
TCU played. I don't even know what brand of basketball
it was horrific. But I think now teams have understood, like, even if Caleb Foster plays, there's not really anybody you're afraid of offensively outside of Isaiah Evans and Cam Boozer. Dame Sarr, you want to take 8 threes? Fucking fire away. Caden Boozer, you want to shoot. Caleb Foster, you want to shoot. Haminia, you want to shoot. He's supposed to be a shooter, but he's ass. Like, it's just, you have 2 guys you really need to worry about, and with the depth that St. John's has and the brutality that they bring to the table defensively, like, it's just going to make Duke so uncomfortable. It's a better version of Michigan State, and Duke barely beat Michigan State on the road. I just think that their roster makeup can make Cam Boozer uncomfortable and mitigate the rest of the guys from having a career night. I just don't see it.
We'll go ahead and move over to the final game of the Friday slate. That is Michigan State against UConn. The only matchup in this Sweet 16 that has 2 national championship winning coaches going against each other in Dan Hurley and scumbag Tom Izzo. What's this game? What's your analysis for it?
So I had Michigan State. Well, okay, it's actually a bit ironic. For most of the year, I had UConn going to the Final Four. As soon as I got the bracket to come out, I picked Michigan State to win this game, and I actually do have Michigan State going to the Final Four. So I hate Michigan State. I dislike Tom Izzo. He's a hypocrite. But UConn this year has been a little bit wobbly. They struggled with Furman. UCLA kind of hung in there, really had a chance to take the game late in the second half, but just choked. And UConn made the plays necessary. Terrace Reed is playing a lot better as of late. Alex Caravan's taken over a bit. Solo Ball is just, who knows what's going on in his head. He's been putrid. Absolutely horrible. Almost unplayably bad. So, Michigan State, they're going to be able to guard UConn 1 through 5. Unlike UCLA and Furman, I don't think Caravan's going to get the looks from the perimeter that he's been used to getting so far in this tournament. I think that UConn's size can be kind of just, erased by Michigan State's. You're going to have guys like Jackson Kohler pulling out bigs from the paint. And I just think Michigan State is going to win a rock fight tonight. It's probably going to be like 70-67 kind of thing. Dan Hurley, I've called him the best play caller in college basketball this season, but the issue with that is, similar to last season, I don't think he has the players that can execute the play calls that he sets them up for. Kind of similar to Pat Kelsey, like we've talked about this year with Louisville. Pat has run plenty of plays where guys got just wide open shots, and they're our best shooters, and they just miss. I kind of feel like that's UConn this year on any given night. When their best players just don't have it, it doesn't matter how good of a game Dan Hurley coaches offensively, they just can't buy any buckets. And Michigan State, it's like a shark in bloody waters when that happens. They take control of those games. So I do think that they're going to win for those reasons, but I picked UConn to go to the Final Four for a reason. I think that they can very well win this game. I just think Michigan State is a little bit of a bad matchup for them.
I'm going to take the opposite side of this one on you. I'm going to say UConn wins this game. For a point you made, I'm going to kind of flip it on its head. In terms of, I think you're entirely right. When you play against teams like Louisville, like UConn, that like to shoot at a high volume, if they're missing those open shots, they do a great job of taking advantage of that and just stuffing it down your throat and just absolutely shutting you up for the rest of the game and kind of keeping you at arm's length. But something that Michigan State has done this entirety of this tournament is basically struggle to extend those arms too far to keep you out of the game, to the point where they're not getting a kill shot off on you.
Yeah.
Like, even in the Louisville game, one of the worst shooting nights we've had in the past couple weeks, you still felt like a little bit in there was like they could definitely come back from this. I mean,
they did come back, really.
They did come back. They did come back. It got to that 13-point lead, or at the end, that kind of was like the end of it, because of the horrendous flaker foul and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it was always a 2 or like short 3-possession game with a lot of time left. You're thinking, okay, yeah, we're down, but there's definitely a possibility. I think that Dan Hurley is going to win over in that sense. I think this is easily the best coach Tom Izzo is going to have gone up against in this tournament so far. And I think that if Michigan State can capitalize on those things that you pointed out, yes, they will win this matchup. But I think Dan Hurley will do a good enough coaching job to not allow them to do so and keep his team in the game.
Sure, yeah.
And you're gonna see why this dude is one of the best coaches in college basketball in the modern era. And you're gonna see the whole Tom Izzo washed up memes come out of the way again. Oh, loses another Sweet 16, loses another Elite 8. He only has one national championship that he shouldn't even have. We're going to talk about that on another day. But all the way back in 2000, Will.
That's what the year I wasn't even born yet.
One championship, not even barely from the century.
It wasn't this century. The century started in 2001, actually. So he did it in the 20th century, not even the 21st century. But like, if you want to call this game a coin flip, I think this is the most apt comparison for that in all of the Sweet 16, honestly. Even the games that happened last night, this is a game that really can go either way, and I don't see it being a double-digit win for either team.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN gives UConn a 53.4% advantage. The spread is 2.5 towards the Huskies. Like I said, it's being played in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Arena. Like, you're taking Michigan State. I'm taking UConn. I think it'll be fun to see how that goes. But we'll go ahead and look, before we close up here, at the two matchups we already know within the Elite Eight on Saturday. It'll be at 6:09 p.m. on TBS or True TV. That'll be Iowa versus Illinois. Illinois.
No.
That was a phonetic error I'm reading while I'm talking. Iowa versus Illinois. I think this is where I said the Iowa historic run was going to end this past week. This is one where Ben McCollum's really going to show his stuff, right? Like, if Ben McCollum can pull this one against an Illinois team that is just, chock full of European, professional basketball leadership, if he can figure this out, then Ben McCollum's going to be basically the number one guy for these UNC job, NC State job, possible Kansas job. His name's going to be thrown around everywhere in the offseason. I'm taking Illinois to win this game. I think that their magical run comes down to the Elite Eight.
So, even though I've gone against my Final Four predictions, there's one prediction that I've stuck to this entire season to go against the people that said March Madness will forever be known as Chalk Madness moving forward. I'm picking Iowa. I said there would be a 5-seed or higher that makes the Final Four this year.
You did say that.
I don't think Tennessee's going to do it. I think Iowa's the best chance. They lost by 6 at home midway through the season to Illinois. But they're a changed team. They're the hottest team in college basketball right now. Alvaro Folgueras is playing like the big man he was supposed to be coming into the year. He's playing out of his mind. You have Bennett Sturts, who hasn't even shot well this tournament. They're in the Elite Eight. Everybody said he was a one-man show. Now everybody else is doing it for him. This game against Illinois, I think they win for two reasons. One, like I said, they're the hottest team in the tournament right now. And two, Illinois, while they did beat Houston last night, only scored 65 points. And they are known. It's their reputation to be the most inconsistent high-power team in college basketball. And that goes beyond this season. That's for pretty much the time that Brad Underwood has had them return as a powerhouse. They've just been extremely inconsistent. They have so many dynamite players. Kylan Boswell, Andrei Stojakovic, Mirkovic, the both Ivisic twins, or the Ivisic brothers. I mean, Humrickhouse. It's an endless...
A lot of itches in there.
Exactly. It's an endless... Keaton Wagler. It's an endless amount of studs and just really good players that fit their roles to a T. But that doesn't always make the difference because we thought that's how Florida was. And I had no thought in my mind that Iowa was going to have a chance against Florida. And they did it. Vanderbilt. Nebraska got up on them big early. Iowa just stayed the course, held true, won the game. I think Iowa's going to win. I'm going to say 72-69 tomorrow.
I like it. Last matchup, at least for at the moment, we will obviously get two more games coming up for the Elite Eight after tonight. But the one we have right now, 8:49 p.m. on TBS True TV, right as Iowa, Illinois finishes up, it would be number 2 Purdue versus number 1 Arizona. They are giving Arizona 6.5 points in this game. The over-under is 153.5. By the way, the over-under in the Illinois-Iowa game is 138.5.
Oh, shit.
That is a low-ass number. So,
yeah.
If it's that low, it can't get any lower, so maybe take that. Maybe Vegas knows something I don't, but I probably say Purdue, Arizona, 153.5. Arizona's getting 6.5. This is going to be the unstoppable force meets immovable object, and unstoppable force is Matt Painter's constant flopping efficiency going up against an actual balanced basketball team that, knows how to control the paint, knows how to play the whistle, knows how to play under pressure in a Tommy Lloyd Arizona coach team. I'm taking Arizona. I'm also taking the points in this.
It's two notoriously bad NCAA tournament chokers at head coach for both of these teams. Matt Painter has made the Final Four, has made a national championship game, but got beat by 15 in the championship game. Tommy Lloyd, always a 1 or 2 seed, it feels like, except for last year, but can never make it past the Sweet 16. They finally did, first time since they had Aaron Gordon on roster, that they made an Elite Eight. Crazy to think about, actually.
Jesus Christ.
But Arizona, they proved me wrong last night. They're going to prove me right tomorrow. Take the fucking points. Bet it like you got Monopoly money. Bet the points for Arizona. They're going to win easily. Screw Purdue. They're the shortest team left in the field. Fun fact. That's Purdue. You wouldn't think that, but it's true. Arizona's going to baby them in the paint. Give me Arizona. I'm going to say 82-69.
Before we head out, I want to get your takes on two more things. One, something I just noticed while looking at these. So for the Sweet 16 matchups we still have tonight, the lowest ticket price is $253. That is Tennessee, Iowa State. And it goes all the way up to $317 for St. John's and Duke. For the Elite Eight matchups we have right now, you can see Iowa, Illinois at $54.
I saw that, actually. Isn't that crazy?
$54 for a regional winner? Like, whichever team wins this will go to the Final Four for $54. Purdue, Arizona is $156.
Yeah.
It's triple. That is unwavering levels of disrespect. Unless you're an Iowa or an Illinois fan, I'd be raving. I'd be getting in my car right now, driving to wherever it's at.
100%. It's history in the making. I mean, it is crazy. I did see that, and I was honestly pretty surprised by it, but it is funny. Now, I do want to ask, I have a question for you. Out of the games tonight, out of these 8 teams that are playing, who do you think has the best chance to make the Final Four out of these 8 teams tonight?
That's tough. If we're talking just on, their roster, do I think they can make it? I think Michigan is the obvious choice for me. If we're talking coaching experience, who I think can like outwit their opponents down the road and win 2 rounds right now. It's either going to be TJ Otzelberger in Iowa State or Dan Hurley in UConn. Those are the 2 I would take. But I think that just in the broad spectrum, I'm taking Michigan.
That East region is beyond loaded. It's crazy. But what was the last thing?
My last point, we got some really, really big news within this region of college basketball in the state of Kentucky on recruiting for the first time in, it feels like 2 years at this point, where not just for Louisville, but for Kentucky as well. Louisville seems to be the leader for technically he's British, but playing in the Italian League guard, Quinn Ellis, sizable guy, defensive, not really fully defensive minded, but a guy with a lot of length, a lot of size. Seems like a pretty good facilitator. What do you think about Quinn Ellis possibly put on the jersey next season?
Yeah, if Quinn Ellis decides to come to Louisville, he's the best player to put on that jersey. If he goes to Duke or UK, ban him to the Shadow Realm. So Quinn Ellis, like you said, he's a bigger guard. Honestly, I don't know if he's as tall as his listed height is. Like, some guys you can clearly tell, like, say Sam Hoiberg last night for Nebraska, they have him listed at 6 foot. He's 5'10" at most. Like, he's a midget in terms of basketball height. Now, Quinn Ellis, if he's not 6'4" to 6'5", he's probably like 6'3", but he's a bulkier 6'3". He's a filled out, like, he's a man. He's 22 years old. So he's basically a grown ass man playing against other grown ass men. So pretty solid facilitator, a better scorer than given credit for. I think he has a better shot than his numbers indicate. I think that if he plays for U of L, he's going to be more akin to a David Johnson style of point guard than what we've had in recent years.
I think a lot of people would like to hear you say that.
Yeah, then a guy like Michael Brown that's a dynamic above-the-rim scorer, or a Chucky Hepburn that's a shorter but feisty defender. It's like he is definitely a David Johnson prototype player in terms of shooting percentages, what I think his passing ability is, like his just build in general. So if he's the guy that Louisville is trying to get or obtain as the point guard for next season, I think it would be a great start to this offseason for U of L. And it would make me feel a lot more confident in the roster construction moving forward, because we are going to get that definitive size, at least in the backcourt. Now you have to do that in the front court, but ultimately Quinn Ellis is a guy that I think could be really successful at U of L, and if he does commit, I'll have an article written up going over his film. So
it's going to be exciting to see. One more question on him. Do you think that with the issues we saw with Fru coming from the Bundesliga, obviously the Italian league is, I feel like, a little bit more of a higher pedigree in terms of basketball?
It is.
It's a different position as well. It's not, the big grueling, 5-man. It's an Italian. It's a European guard that we've seen success with in college basketball. But do you think the issues we saw with Fru might deter fans from getting on Quinn Ellis a little too early?
No. I would understand why people would think that way, but as you mentioned, the Italian league, it's arguably the second best league in the world, honestly. The Euro League is right, obviously right there, but he played for the British World Cup team, did an admirable job. Did he average like 18 points for them, something like that in that range? I'm pretty sure. But the thing is like Fru, you could kind of tell that he was a bit more skittish. He's a bit wiry for a big man. Obviously, European big men have a much different, presence about them than American bigs do, and he just didn't have that dog in him this year. I do think that European guards and forwards tend to translate better to college basketball, especially ones that do have size and skill to kind of throw their weight around. So I wouldn't be worried if Quinn Ellis is that guy. The only thing I'd be wary of is if we're paying him like $4+ million to come next season, because I would say that's a gamble. I would say that's a gamble for anybody, honestly. It's not exclusive to Quinn Ellis. It's like, even if it's a bona fide 5-star freshman that you want to lead your team, I don't trust it. So you gotta, if you're gonna invest a lot into certain players more so than spreading the wealth to everybody, you have to be certain that they're gonna bring the goods. So I do think that Quinn Ellis is a guy that U of L can rely on to be the starting guard and kind of just the not even a game manager, but just the guy on the team next season, like the one that you look to be the calming presence and a guy that can kind of just get a bucket whenever you need it, but also play better defense than guys like Michael Brown or Ryan Conwell or Isaac McNeely did this year. So overall, I am very excited for him, but it doesn't come without a little bit of reservation. I think that's just natural. So we'll see.
Two more pieces on the recruiting news. One just came up just now, so I'll point that out right now. It's not announced yet, but we just got a tweet from Joe Tipton, avid college basketball insider, that Tyron Stokes is once again nearing a decision for when he's going to commit. I feel like I've heard that tweet about 30,000 times in this recruiting cycle. Seems like it's a really interesting time with the whole Bill Self news going on, but he will be, it seems like, announcing pretty soon. I'm going to see if I can, hold on. I just had it in my phone refreshed. It says he's doing the thing Joe Tipton does where it's behind a paywall. It just says a date, possible date emerges. So I'm not paying On3 to find out what day, but it seems like Tyron Stokes is leaning towards finally committing somewhere. But the other big piece of news is you can't say he can't recruit anymore, Will. You can't do it. Mark Pope lands his first guy in the 2026 class, the only guy in the 2026 class. He gets Mo Williams' son, Mason Williams, number 125 player nationally. 4-star Mason Williams, decommitted from his own father at Jackson State, Mo Williams, head coach. Are we nervous?
No. My friend John just put in our group chat that picture, and I just had to troll him real quick. So, no, not worried at all. I mean, Mo Williams was a bucket getter back in the day. Not a lot of NBA sons, like, around that caliber of player, say, like, also a Jameer Nelson, a Jermaine O'Neal. Their sons have not been that good in college basketball. So, especially if it's just a 4-star, I'm not sweating it, but congratulations to Mark Pope. He has put all the haters to rest today after saying recruiting, stay solid, it's going to get better. He has put every doubter in their place now. Kentucky has what I think one of the best recruits in this class coming in next season. And Mark Pope is setting himself up to get a grade A extension from the University of Kentucky and hopefully be the coach there for the rest of our lives.
I mean, he had to go up and really battle against some serious competition and getting Mason Williams. He had to beat Jackson State, once again, his father as a head coach. Who decommit from your dad is a bad look. I'm just going to say it out there, bad look. Yeah. He had to beat up Ole Miss and Chris Beard, who probably offered him $7 million to come there. He had to beat out Texas Tech. That's a good one. Then it kind of goes towards Washington, Eastern Carolina, Memphis, Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, New Mexico State, and Stephen F. Austin. So really tough battle. Really tough battle, 4-star Mason Williams.
That list is like the competition can't be any harder. I mean, you had mid-major has-been powerhouses like Stephen F. Austin on that list. I mean, the last thing I remember about them is getting a buzzer-beating layup against Duke before COVID. It's just they have an incredibly well-run program. Mark Pope has finally beaten the narratives that he is Mark Whiff or Mark Poop on the recruiting trail. I think you're going to see a different animal this season. He might actually cuss in a game now. And
might break more than one clipboard.
He might. And he might finally get a guy on his roster that can shoot 40% plus from 3 and play a style that's pertinent to what he likes to do. So we'll just see what Kentucky has next season. I think this is a great start. I hope he's their starting point guard and he plays 40 minutes a game, doesn't need to sit, because the depth didn't work for them last year. I think they're going to go to a shorter rotation this year and really put all of their money into studs like Mason Williams.
I think so too. Cut that down to 6 or 7 guys and see what goes on. But it's always fun to joke around, and this is a really fun. Even though your team is out of the tournament, the transfer portal has made this a lot more fun time of an off season where it's not just before, where when you lost in the tournament, you already knew the guys who were going to come back, the guys who had to graduate. Obviously, you knew those beforehand, and you just had to sit here for 7 or 8 months and wait for the next calendar year to turn over so you could start getting some serious basketball news. Now, technically starting now, because people are already talking, but on April, I think 7th is when the transfer portal opens. Is when it is. you're for the rest of the summer, basically, you're going to get news of Louisville's bringing this guy, Kentucky's bringing that guy, Iowa State's bringing this guy in. You know, Duke's going to in on this guy. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to have stuff to talk about, but we got a big slate tonight. And then, you know, tomorrow night, just as big. We're going to have 4 big games tomorrow night as well. I'm excited for that slate. But we appreciate you guys for listening in to the show at the One Shining Podcast. Like I said, follow us on Twitter at mchilders__ at Will Wigginton. And we'll see you guys next time on the One Shining Podcast.
Go Cards.
Go Cards.